coming out as an atheist and going to therapy for almost 3 years, I realized how the relationships in my family, the dynamics, how they operate, and just everything in between is extremely unhealthy. And I don't like throwing out the word toxic very often because there's a difference between something being unhealthy, unhelpful, instead of something just calling everything toxic. I believe that my family, especially the senior members of my family, which basically everyone's a senior because I'm the youngest of everybody. And the whole issue with my family, there's a lot of red flags in my family. In therapy, I learned how to effectively communicate how I feel, why I do things without talking for other people or telling people why they do things. But there's something about my family. They don't like to be confronted about unhealthy red flag and borderline just unhealthy toxic dynamics. There's a level of hypocrisy in my family that's just, if you didn't see it and understand it, you could not make this stuff up. You could not. There's an old saying, what's good for you, but not for me. It's the double standard. I mean, if the person I'm talking about was a man, it would be such a double standard. And there's such perfectionism in my family that nothing you do is good enough, which is why some people in my family don't even try because they're so conditioned to being torn down, criticized, and just not appreciated, even if they do something wrong, which is, of course, not on purpose. Nobody appreciates what people do, so people stop trying. Somebody can be redefining a vice and be giving advice about this. For instance, this is not what happened, but this is a prime example. Somebody who is the worst driver you've ever seen in your life, giving tips on how to safely drive. The hypocrisy is so unbelievable in my family. You could not make it up. People who harp on me about not having everything in its place. I used to be a perfectionist, and then I realized I'm not wasting my life being perfect about things. If a few things in my home, my apartment, isn't where it should be, that's called living. Now, I'm not a messy person. If 10 was extremely anal about where everything is, and a 0 would be a pack rat, I'm between an 8 and a 9. It's not good enough in this family. Everything has to look like a Better Homes and Garden magazine. They can procrastinate about doing just the basics of hygiene and domestic chores, but the one time I don't, they harp on me. It's sharing with another person can be a wonderful thing, but when one of the people doesn't know how to compromise or can't even imagine compromising, or if they do compromise, they make you regret every moment of it. And just to do a simple thing like hygiene or doing a load of laundry, you have to climb over a lot of stuff just to do things. Like, it should not take 30 minutes of redesigning a room so someone can use just a basic tool, a basic, like, the room is made for this one chore, and you have to move for 30 minutes, everything around it, on top of it, to even get to see it. And then they have the, I don't know what it is, gall or just obliviousness to criticize me about not doing something fast enough, and they're 12 to 20 weeks behind. That's the kind of family I live in. The hypocrisy is so blatant and normalized, they can't even see it. Imagine being criticized for not doing a dish 12 hours after you eat, and yet they have 4 weeks of stuff piled everywhere. That's the kind of hypocrisy I'm talking about. And it's not a surprise that the person is religious. Because hypocrisy, I honestly believe religion created hypocrisy. There is no hypocrisy more blatant and astounding than people who claim to be perfect. And I've had to live with it. It's called projection. And when I point out, you can't call someone out over a 12-hour thing when you're 4 to 6 weeks behind the exact same thing. You have no moral high ground. And when someone criticizes you 5 times more than they compliment you, you have a toxic dynamic. And you would not believe the hypocrisy I've seen. I recently talked to my mother about the Assemblies of God misconduct scandal that's gone back decades, all the way back to the 70s. And instead of saying, we Christians need to do better, we need to stop creating an environment where this is thriving or ignored, she said, well, they're not really Christians. Like, there's no accountability. I firmly believe if abuse like that had happened in my home, my parents probably would have hid it, ignored it, or taken years to do anything positive about it, because that's the environment my family is used to. There's no accountability. I mean, it doesn't even compute that this person is redefining what they're criticizing me over. And it's not about shaming people. It's fine if you want to be anal about work, astute, detail-oriented. But you have no right to criticize somebody when you have the same problem 4 times as bad and it has been going on for almost a month. I mean, the audacity, like having a guest whose house looks like a tornado and daring to comment on their hostess's lack of dusting. They cannot see what's in front of them, ever. They're so oblivious to the realities of life. And when I made a joke about the person redefining what they're criticizing me over, they don't want to take criticism. They can't take it. And I always live by the proverb, if you can't take it, you don't dish it out. I think Roger, the alien from American Dad, said something. Don't be starting what you can't finish, bitch. That is what the term is called. And there's a verse in the Bible. Before you pluck out somebody's issue in their eye, pluck your own out. Get rid of the log in your eye before you help with the needle in someone else's. If you can't even tell, you suffer from, I call it redefining being messy. You have no right to comment about somebody else's lack of doing one dish, okay? But there's no internal questioning. There's nothing. They don't even see it. And when I laugh and talk about hypocrisy, they get angry because religious people think they've cornered the market on morality and what's right and wrong. They haven't. If anyone is further from gaining morality and having a standard, religion or religious people are the furthest from it. When you're so used to having a shifty morality, it's almost impossible to see it for what it is. It's easier to lie to someone and get them to believe a lie than it is to convince them something's a lie. so true. It really is true. And the whole problem isn't that, I can wash a dish. It hasn't even been 12 hours. Maybe I should have washed the dish. But there's something in my family that they would rather harp on a dish and never do internal reflection why there's 100 dishes that they've created and it's still sitting there. Why, instead of lecturing me about one dish that hasn't been sitting there 12 hours yet, they could be doing their own mountain of them. It never computes. There is nothing going on up there. It's flagrant hypocrisy. That's religion for you. They villainize one dish when they have redefined being late. Procrastination. And the person's not feeling well. My problem is, don't blame somebody for keeping you from doing something when they're still there 3 days after we stop spending time together. I'm not the reason why you're not doing your chores. You're using me as an excuse, and I'm not going to be somebody's excuse. I'm going to call someone out. We haven't spent time together for 3 days, and that's the reason she says she hasn't done something. No. If that were true, you would have done them in the 3 days we haven't been together. I don't care if she does them or not. Don't lie and say I'm the reason why. And don't comment about me not doing one item when you have 100 of them sitting right to the left. And when you point that out, the person throws a tantrum like a 4-year-old. They can dish it out, but they can't take it.